So if you're in academia, you know the deal. Being a brilliant expert in your subject, well, that's the price of entry. But you've probably had that nagging feeling, right? That frustration that just being smart isn't quite enough. If that sounds familiar, this explainer is for you. We're going to unpack a framework that'll give you a totally new way to look at your entire academic career. Let's just put the question right out there. Is being an expert really all it takes to succeed? I mean, so many early career academics are doing fantastic work, but they're struggling to get traction, to get that funding, to make the impact they know they can make. It really feels like there's something else going on, something just under the surface. And guess what? You're right. There is something else going on. See, success isn't just about what you know. It's about understanding the hidden rules of the game in your field. Every single discipline is like a living thing. It has its own life cycle, its own secret rules. And today, we're going to give you the cheat codes. Okay, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look beyond just the subject matter. Then, we'll dive into your field's life cycle. After that, we get really practical. We'll figure out how to diagnose what phase your field is in right now. From there, you'll get to choose your strategic role in all this. And finally, we'll talk about how to navigate your career with a real sense of control, with agency. All right, section 1, beyond your subject matter. This is about why your discipline is a living system, not just some dusty library of facts. The first step here is a big mental shift. You have to stop thinking of your field as a static collection of knowledge and start seeing it for what it is, a dynamic, living system that is always changing. And the key to understanding this system is a concept called a paradigm. You've probably heard of it, thanks to the historian Thomas Kuhn. A paradigm is basically the invisible rulebook for your field. It's the set of assumptions that dictates what questions are even worth asking, what methods are legit, and what a contribution even looks like. It's the operating system running in the background of your entire discipline. Okay, so if your field has this hidden rulebook, how do the rules change? Well, this brings us to section 2, your field's life cycle. And here's a really cool way to think about it. We're going to see your field's evolution through the lens of literary genres. That's right, academic fields evolve a lot like literary traditions. They have these long, stable periods, and then boom, a revolution that changes everything. Now check this out, because this is where the analogy gets really powerful. On one hand, you have what Kuhn called normal science. This is the stable phase. It's basically mopping up work, solving little puzzles within the existing rules. And that maps perfectly onto genre fiction. Think about a classic detective novel. It follows a formula, right? It meets our expectations, and it's satisfying. That's normal science. But then, you have a scientific revolution. This happens when weird results or anomalies start piling up that the old rules just can't explain. This is like a mind-blowing novel that completely rips up the rulebook and invents a whole new way of telling stories. So, moving on to section 3, diagnosing the current phase. This isn't just a fun thought experiment. It is a dead serious diagnostic tool. You can actually use this idea to look at your own field and ask, is my field stable right now? Is it in crisis? Or is it in the middle of a full-blown revolution? See, every discipline kind of goes through this cycle. It kicks off in a stable phase, where one paradigm is dominant and everyone's busy solving puzzles. But sooner or later, a crisis hits. Those anomalies, the weird findings that don't fit, they just keep piling up. And that pressure eventually leads to a revolutionary phase, where a brand new paradigm takes over, explains all the weirdness, and starts a new, stable period. Let's take a real-world example, theoretical linguistics. For decades, Chomsky's universal grammar was the paradigm. It was the law. But now, it's clearly in crisis. You've got anomalies everywhere, like all these languages that just refuse to follow the rules. You've got fragmentation and endless debates. And then you have these new technologies, like large language models that seem to work without any of Chomsky's assumptions. So what happens? The old guard gets defensive. You see all the classic signs that a revolution might be brewing. And that brings us to section 4, choose your strategic role. Because seeing these signs isn't just an interesting observation, it's a massive strategic advantage. Once you know how to read the map of your field, the next question is, where do you want to stand? This is where you go from being just a passenger in your field to being a strategist. So seriously, just take a second and think about it. Based on what you can now see about your discipline, its stability, its cracks, its debates, what role actually makes sense for you? For your personality, for your skills, for what you actually want to achieve? Well, this framework basically gives you 3 strategic roles you can play. First, there's the paradigm reinforcer. If your field is stable, this is your safe bet. You do that important mopping up work, refining and applying the main theories. It's low risk, but let's be honest, probably low visibility too. Next, there's the anomaly finder. This is for fields in crisis. You're the detective, poking at the edges, exploring all the stuff that doesn't fit. It's a riskier path for sure and can be precarious, but it offers a ton of freedom and influence. And finally, you have the revolutionary theorist. This is the high-risk, high-reward, go-for-broke role. You're not just finding problems, you're trying to build the next big thing. It almost never works, but when it does, it's absolutely transformative. So, we've gone from theory to strategy. Now for the last piece. Section 5, Navigate with Agency. This is about taking all this understanding and turning it into real, concrete action. Let's lock in the final takeaway. It all boils down to this simple 3-step process. First, diagnose. Your job is to become a map maker, a cartographer of your own field. Listen to the arguments, find the core assumptions, and hunt for those anomalies. Second, position. Looking at your map, you consciously choose your role. Are you a reinforcer, an anomaly finder, or a revolutionary? You decide. And third, navigate. You start acting with this new awareness of the whole system. You use it to make sense of conflicts, to spot opportunities, and to make your career moves with way more foresight. And in the end, that's what this is really all about. This whole framework is a tool for turning your awareness of how your field is structured into real, honest-to-goodness intellectual agency. When you understand the game you're playing, you gain the power to not just play it better, but maybe, just maybe, to help change the rules.